What's up, first years? Are you having a good morning? Yeah, all right. Who remembers the rowdy cheer? Everyone's hands should be in the air. Okay, if you don't know it, it's easy to pick up. You should know it, but we're gonna learn it now. But you're just gonna catch on with the rest of us, all right? Who's ready? Welcome, Liane.
So I'm Liane Davey. It's really nice to meet you. I am a Waterloo Arts alum. I hope I'm a Waterloo Arts alum success story, hopefully. It feels good to me. I think things are going well. So what do I do in my day job? So I write books, so I'm a best-selling author. I host a blog. I write articles for different magazines. And I spend a lot of time helping the executive teams of corporations be more effective. So that's what I do. So if you know some famous executive teams, so maybe one that would be of interest to you, I work with the executive team of Sony PlayStation. So that, see, as with an arts degree, you can work with the CEO of Sony PlayStation. Pretty fun stuff. The gift bags are sweet. So that's what I do in my day job. So, here's why I hope I have something relevant to say to you today. So, going into university 28 years ago, I was, the really strong high school student. So I had really good grades. Maybe except calculus, but really good grades in most things. And I had really strong extracurriculars. I was, did the United Nations Club, did a big choir and band trip to Germany. I had done all that stuff. I got the principal's award for, the representative of the school, all that. And I had the completely excruciatingly horrible social life, just like you're supposed to have in high school. So I had all of that. I was probably a lot like you guys in high school. Burlington is home. Any Burlingtonians? They're quiet. Like, that's it. That's all we got. That is kind of Burlington, right? Anyone from Burlington? I'm from Burlington. It's okay. It was an absolutely great place to be from. So that's where I started. And I told you where I am today. So writing books, giving speeches for a living, working with cool companies, doing amazing things. I have a blast. My job is so much fun. I love my work. Psychology was my degree. So doing amazing things. But I had a really rough time in the middle of those two things. And the middle of those two things is what you are starting this week. So in between, this nest that you have at home, this squad of people that are there to make sure that you're fed and clothed and happy and succeeding and all those sorts of things. And what faces you, which is a work world that doesn't give a damn about you and really doesn't care, and the ability to buy a house for you guys is going to be incredibly challenging. The ability to get a full-time job and not contract work, it's rough. It's hard. You have 4 years to figure that out. To go from the nest to that, you got 4 years. Okay? And those started like yesterday. So it's ticking. But it's not the things you think you have to learn. So you think you have to learn how to build a great sentence. You think you have to learn how to come up with a thesis and defend it. You think you have to learn how to perform or to, all the things that you're going to go into the classroom to learn, you have to learn those things. And you have to be proficient at those things. But what I want to talk about today is actually the stuff you need to learn to be ready for that world. And it's probably not what you think. It's very different things than what you think. So I know you go to UW, but I like to call it FU. So the university you really need to go to is FU. So what is FU and what happens at FU? Well, 3 things. They just all happen to start with F. So let's talk about the three things and what I think you really need to learn and what's going to be very painful to learn and what's going to be challenging to learn, but what's the most important stuff you have to learn. So the first thing you have to learn is to figure it out. And that sounds ridiculous, but if you realize how much of the world in 2017 has been focused around helping you figure everything out, laying things out in front of you, making sure you have everything you need, whether that be at home, the people who care about you, the people who have set you up for success, whether it be, extracurriculars. My kids are competitive dancers, like hardcore competitive dancers. And it's a very interesting thing to see what competition has become in 2017. So they went to a competition and I had to leave early. I went off on a business trip and I came home and I saw the trophy at the dance studio and the trophy was about this high. I was like, whoa, you guys won, that's amazing. And my daughter said, no, we came fourth. Like, dude, the trophy is taller than you, you came fourth? Like, where did they put the trophy for the first place people? They probably had to knock out the ceiling tiles to fit it in. And when I watch them compete, everybody gets a medal. They come home with, it's like, dude, you wiped out in the middle of that routine, but look at my medal. You have had an entire world. Our whole society is so wired now to protect you, to help you, to figure it out for you. Anybody know what a rubric is? You guys had rubrics in high school? The word rubric, I don't think it existed when I was in school. There was no rubric. Like, you wrote your essay and hoped you talked about the right stuff, right? Or you did the history exam and, were fingers crossed that you answered the right stuff. There's no rubric, right? So these things are all positive. We think we're evolving and we think we're adding things and making it better. We have my blueprint for students to figure out what they want to do in high school and how to take all the right things. But what we've actually done is reduce the number of things that you had to figure out. So the people that we reward, and maybe why you're sitting in these chairs at one of the most prestigious universities in the country as an incoming student, is because you were really good at following instructions. You paid attention to the rubric, and that's what you put in your project, and that's why you got really high grades, which is why you're at Waterloo, right? But the things, that's this world. But this world doesn't have instructions and doesn't have answer keys and doesn't have rubrics. If you're following instructions, it means you're doing something that somebody has already figured out, which means you're really not adding that much value, right? The exciting stuff in the world is the stuff that people haven't figured out the answers, and the really exciting stuff in the world is the stuff where people haven't even figured out the questions yet. So somewhere between everything being packaged for you and very clear and everyone making sure that you were successful and that world, you have to figure out how to figure it out. So it just reminds me of, there was a guy in my res in first year, his name was Peter Kim, and Peter Kim arrived at school on the first day, and he had come from a family where he did nothing. And we lived in an apartment-style res, and we had to grocery shop and cook food and take care of ourselves like real humans. And the first night, Peter Kim, that was done as 4 girls in one room, 4 boys in another room, and there were 3 sets of each on the floor. And so because we were the girls' room, he came into our room, and he goes, I need your help. And I was like, okay, what do you need? He said, how do you wash dishes? What? How do you wash dishes? Dude, we don't have a dishwasher. There's no buttons. What do you mean, how do you wash dishes? How do I wash my dishes? I would have thought that was a figure it out one. Give it a whirl, try it out. Turns out he had tried, right? Forgot the soap piece, right? Okay, so here was a guy who didn't even know how to wash dishes in a sink. There is a lot to figure out, okay? You're gonna have to, so here's a big challenge. It is not physically possible to do all the work that you will get. Especially in the arts, sorry. Right? Because, you know, you're doing a history class and there'll be a bibliography attached to the back of it of additional readings. It's not possible to read all the things that are on the back of that bibliography. It's not possible. It's not possible to do all of what you could and should do to get perfect. It's not possible. So the first thing you have to figure out is what matters and what doesn't matter. What's important and what's not important. Where do you have to be? Where do you not have to be? Which class can you sleep through? Which class can you not sleep through? These are important things to figure out, right? You got to figure it out. How many of you have roommates? You have got to figure that out. And it's going to be 13 days before you go to some res advisor trying to get moved, right? About 13 days. Please, please, my roommate is a psychopath. You need to move me. No, not likely. If they are, please call. Please, please call. But not likely. It's just they come from a different family that comes from a different culture, that had different norms, probably with a different circadian cycle. I don't know how they managed to always put roommates with different circadian cycles together, but you are always just trying to go to sleep right as they're FaceTiming with somebody back home, right? That's how it works. You have to figure out, how do I study while they're FaceTiming, right? You got to figure it out. Nobody's going to figure that out for you. When we get to the work world, you have to figure all of that out. You have to figure out things like, you're going to get job offers, and one job may have more mobility and more opportunity and more stretch and more room to grow, and another job may pay $7,000 a year more. How do you make that call? Well, those are all things that you've learned and practiced by figuring stuff out for yourself here. So to figure it out, you have to be curious, right? And it's going to be so easy here to not be curious. Just tell me what, I was a TA here. I taught and graded exams many times here. What's the number one question you get from students? Not help me understand this, not how does this, is this going to be on the exam? Right? It's really easy to stop being curious. But that may work for a little while here, it will stop working here, and it will fail you when you get to the other end. So the more messy, ugly, challenging, uncomfortable situations you can get yourself in while you're here, the better. Learn to figure it out. Try not phoning home. Try not going to someone else. Work with each other. Help each other. Ask yourself. That's the other thing you got to learn. You got to learn to trust your own gut, right? Your own gut is the best thing you're going to have for the rest of your life. Your instincts, not somebody else's, not what your parents think is the right thing, not what a guidance counselor thinks is the right thing. What does your gut say? What matters to you? You got to find that gut, and you got to trust it and practice with it and see if it tells you the right things or if it tells you the wrong things. Right? That's important. You got to get all that stuff figured out. So the more you can take ownership, the more you can be curious, the more you can actually sit in ambiguity, wrestle with something, be uncomfortable with something, those people are going to be making the $100 grand, and the people who can follow instructions and the people who wait to be told what to do are going to top out at 50 grand. So you got to figure out which one of those people are you. Okay, so that's the first thing. It gets harder from there. The next thing you have to learn to do here is fight. So how many people were raised by someone who said some version of, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all? Yeah, definitely over here, yeah. Right? There's a lot of that, right? If you can't say any. There's a local community Facebook group where I live in Leaside in Toronto, and somebody, the the convener of the group put on the group yesterday, she put that line. You know, if we can't say nice things, then we shouldn't say anything. Wow. So first of all, for most of us, what that really was if you can't say anything nice, wait until we're in the car. Right? It's not that unpleasant things are not thought and said. Just as Canadians, we don't say them to each other's faces. We're an extremely passive-aggressive culture. Like, whoa, like everybody check your back, right? Pull out the knives. It's a big, big, big problem now in the work world, a really big problem. So you would think working with CEOs, working with executive teams, working with people who make literally millions of dollars, that wouldn't be an issue. It's absolutely an issue. The most common thing that I am brought in to help a team with is to create more conflict. It's weird, but it's true. So you have got to build your conflict skills while you're here. You've got to learn how to fight, how to stand up for yourself, how to look different, how to have a diverse thought, and how to defend that thought effectively, how to advocate for yourself. Right? Those are fundamentally important skills. Again, the difference between the $100,000 person and the $50,000 person. Because the $50,000 person doesn't stand up for novel ideas, so they're not perceived as innovative. They get stuck in a rut. The $50,000 person is conflict averse and never says, you know what, I think I've demonstrated that I'm adding more value and it's time for me to get a raise. Or this is why I think I'm contributing more. Or this is why you should hire me, not that person. Those are all assertive, kind of stand your ground, fight for yourself skills. Guess where you learn those? You don't learn them in high school, where it freaks me out the number of times I see parents in high schools fighting about their kids' grades. You know, my daughter, I don't think was graded fairly on that previous exam. I would really like you to revisit her grade because that is not going to get her into Waterloo, so I need you to change that grade. They're gone, right? Your posse is gone. None of you have your parents in the room, right? There's no one, like, are they hiding in the balcony? Is anyone's parent here? It does happen apparently, which is really frightening. But they're gone. So if there's been an injustice, if there's something you need, if there's extra help you need, if there's something that would help you be more successful and you need it, only you can get it for yourself. Nobody else is going to stick up for you. This place is too huge. You have to advocate for yourself. And when you get into upper year classes, and especially at Waterloo, and especially in the arts, it's about thinking differently than everyone else, not thinking the same. And so much of high school was about thinking the same, and dressing the same, and being the same, and fitting in. So you've spent all this time trying to fit in. Watching my kids get ready for school yesterday morning, my daughter went to middle school for the first time, my younger daughter, watching the hours that went into finding an outfit that looked good but didn't look like she was trying to look good, it was amazing. Like, wow, that was impressive. So you've spent all this time trying to fit in, to be like everyone else, to all that. Now you got 4 years to figure out who you are. And to be really comfortable and proud and really confident about being who you are, because those are the people who will succeed in a gig economy, right? The gig economy is all about who can put themselves out as somebody attractive. It's highly competitive. You're looking for a new job constantly. It's a very different world. If you've never learned to advocate for yourself, to be different, to think different, to stand up for a perspective that's in contrast and in conflict with what everyone else is saying, you are not nearly as attractive. So you spent all this time in the school system being taught that conflict is bad. We labeled the smallest things bullying, right? We have such an aversion to conflict. Can't we all just get along? And you got 4 years to figure out, what does healthy conflict look like? How do you do it well? How do you disagree with someone and not make them defensive? How do you have a different perspective and enjoy debate? Okay? That is one of the most important life skills you can possibly get. And most people I know, everything that has come until now has been the opposite of that. Has been teaching you how to avoid conflict, how to get out of it as quickly as possible, how to fit in and not rock the boat and not make waves and all that kind of stuff. You got 4 years to figure out, how do I have conflict well? The good news is you all got roommates, so you're going to learn really fast, right? There's going to be a lot of conflict, right? Did you drink all the milk again? Did you drink all the milk again? Did we agree that you weren't going to drink all the milk? Because you drink all the milk again. What are you going to do about it? Are you just going to keep buying the milk? How many people love group work in your classes? How many people love it when your mark and your future is dependent on other people, some of whom are actually, slackers? Do you love that? Do you love group work? It's awesome, isn't it, right? When your grade is completely dependent on other people who might or might not be interested in getting the kinds of grade you are, yeah, you know what? Conflict. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to stay up all night and do all the work? Because that's better than getting a lower grade? Are you going to stand your ground? Are you going to talk to the prof about it? What are you going to do with that? What are you going to do when you get in a group of slackers? What are you going to do? You got to figure it out, right? And you got to fight for yourself. So it's hard. It's hard stuff, right? It's really hard stuff. Okay, there's one more F at FU, and it's the worst F of all. And it's the one that I feel and I can talk about, but it is the most painful. So I told you what kind of a student I was, right? I was the same kind of awesome student like all of you. And I was going to be a doctor, because that's, in the 80s at least, that's what good students did. And I went to first year university, and I had to take calculus. And not like easy calculus, but full year, 4-day-a-week, full theoretical calculus. And I belly flopped it. I belly flopped it. 25% on the midterm. And I flunked it. Just bang, done. So that meant med school, gone. Bye-bye. Immediately out. But it also meant, what the heck do I do now? And I decided that I was going to do this program called Combined Honors Physiology and Psychology, because I loved biology and the psychology stuff I'd taken in first year. That was pretty cool, and it was awesome. But to get a psych degree, you had to have statistics, and to do statistics, you had to have a first-year math credit. Guess what? I was now stuck, because I didn't have math, so I couldn't take stats, so I couldn't get into the honors program in psychology, so I was in a holding pattern. And there was this huge moment. First of all, failing a full-year course in first-year university, it was mortifying for me. It was mortifying. Fail, I'd had a B in high school, but not a lot of them, right? Fail? I failed? Full-on failed. No, really? It was mortifying. And now it was a big problem, because it was going to hold up my university degree. And I had to make a call. What do I do? And I decided that I was going to take the exact same course again. I didn't have to. To get into stats and to get into psych, you could take a half-year algebra course, which was fun math. And I just decided, nope, I am not leaving that 0 on my record. And I took the exact same course again. And just to make it worse, in first year it had been 8:30, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 8:30 a.m., 4 days a week. Oh. But just to make it worse, in second year, they moved it to 8 a.m., 4 days a week. Awesome. So I walked in on the first day, and it was the same freaking professor. Oh my God. This guy was classic. His name was Dr. Brian, and he used, math professors. He would wear these really cheap white dress shirts, that were like a little too tight and a little too like popping, right? And instead of a white undershirt, he'd wear things like a Superman shirt underneath the white dress. He was classic. So I walked in on the first day, and I sat down, and he goes, oh, nice to see some familiar faces. But I got 75. And yay! I know, that 75 was like the proudest mark of my entire 9 years of university. And that was probably one of the most important formative experiences in my entire life, because I had never failed at anything. I didn't know what it meant to fail. And I really failed at something that really mattered and was really obvious, and right? And that's where I figured out who I was. That it didn't kill me. It was embarrassing on the first day to have him be like, but it was fine. And I was in a better place to actually be prepared and think and do the course well. And I took statistics in the summer, which meant I got to stay at school in May and June, which that was also actually really fun. It was all good. And what it turned out is that later in life, I know so many people who didn't fail or have their first really aversive experience like that until into their 30s. And the problem is, then they've never learned how. And the fall is so much higher than. I was 18 when I was like, oh well, here we go again. And I learned that I could do that. I learned that was okay, that it didn't kill me. And if you don't learn how to fail while you're here, and you don't have to fail quite as epically as I did, I actually recommend that you not fail quite as epically as I did. Just have little fails, micro fails. And if you do have an epic fail, I have a really good friend who was invited to leave university. It's actually a really nicely written letter where they invite you to leave university. They do put a lot of effort into it. It's not like, it was very nicely written. But they invited him to leave university. He went on to get a master's in materials engineering and work in the aerospace sector, right? You can have epic fails and come back from them. I don't recommend the epic ones, but you need to have some. You need to take a course that was too hard for you. You need to take a course that you thought was a good idea and really struggle with it. You need to get smacked in the butt a couple times, because that's when you figure out who you are, right? That's where you figure out that you're going to fail all through life. You're going to get knocked down, right? And that's when you figure out, no, it's okay. You get back up. It's all good. And if you don't learn that here, the price you pay to learn that gets higher and higher. Now, I also got fired from a summer job in university. Again, totally mortifying, awful. I failed at being a pub waitress. Really? And actually, I got fired because I stood up for myself. So I used my fight skills, and they caused me to fail. Well, that was a good learning. That was a very good learning. So both failing a course and then getting fired from a job, then I learned, okay, neither of those things killed me, so bring it. So you're here and you've carefully picked your course, which courses you're going to take, and you've looked at the syllabi, and you're really focused right now on what you have to learn in class and how you do that to get into the right things you want to get into in second year. And maybe you're already thinking about what comes after that, and do you want to do a diploma after that, or graduate school, or I don't know, all those things that you're thinking about. But actually, as a human being, what you have to learn at university is bigger, more important, more formative, right? Let's be honest, most of the stuff that I learned in university isn't true anymore, pretty much, right? It's sad, it's true. When I got my very, very first job after graduate school, so probably the year before you were born, I got sent on boot camp to Washington, D.C., And we got to do this whole tour and whatever, and I bought this souvenir ruler of all the presidents of the United States. So I pulled it out last night when I was working on something, and I just laughed because the last president on my ruler is Bill Clinton. Like, yikes, again, you were not born. My ruler is even older than you people are. It was frightening. So the big stuff, the stuff that when you're 45 like me and old, that's going to matter is, did you learn how to figure stuff out? Because the world is going to throw things at you that you have to figure out over and over and over and over and over again. And learning to figure it out, stay calm, have confidence in yourself, and figure things out, super important. The whole world has taught you to this point that fighting is wrong. And I'm not advocating, like, don't punch people and don't be mean. And, that's not what I'm talking about. But you have to fight for what's right. You have to fight for your ideas. You have to give something that's different and original and unique in the world. You have to advocate for yourself. So you got 4 years to learn how to fight, and how to fight well, and how to fight and be friends after. Those are big skills, and they're not things that you're really ready for. So figure it out. And you gotta learn how to flop. You gotta learn how to fail. Pick yourself up. Dust yourself off. Figure out who you are, that you can count on yourself. One of the things they talk a lot about now is that we don't help people learn how to deal with risk. So, our kids had this playground at school, and there's these giant boulders in this beautiful eco garden. And the boulders are, whatever, like there's a boulder here, and then there's a boulder here, and then there's a boulder here. And there were kids on the playground playing, and they were pushing each other and whatever. And a kid fell and he was on one rock, and he fell and hit his head on the other rock. So they took the rocks out of the playground, right? Because we're going to make a world where there's no rocks for our kids to knock themselves on. That's what the world has done to you. They've put rubber stuff under the play structures. They've made the play structure so boring that nobody wants to play on it anymore. And so what you haven't learned is how to take little risks and learn how to take bigger and bigger risks, right? So now you actually have to go from here to here really fast instead of having taken more and more and more risk. And so you know what? You're going to fail. You're going to fall. You're going to flop. That's okay. That's what you're supposed to do. Get back up. Keep going. Okay? So it's such a magical time. When people say, would you love to be in high school again? No. I was like, no. I was a major loser in high school. No, but would I love to be an undergrad again? Absolutely. It's such an amazing time. But just remember that the stuff you've got to learn here is way bigger than what it says in the curriculum. And if you learn those things, as a Waterloo arts grad, you can become an author. You can, consult to the CEO of PlayStation. You can do amazing things. But it's just different stuff you got to learn than probably what you're paying attention to today. Does anybody have any questions? I would love questions about anything, are totally fair game. Do you have any questions that I can answer as somebody who's sort of in the working world, hiring people? Yeah. My book? So it's not a novel. I have 2 books. So my second book, the one that I really love, is called You First, Inspire Your Team to Grow Up, Get Along, and Get Stuff Done, because they wouldn't let me put shit in the title. Everybody knows that it really should be Get Shit Done. And so what it's about is what happens if you end up on a dysfunctional team? And what if your boss is a jerk? And what if your teammates are idiots? And the whole thing is just going south, and you're stuck there. That's your job. That's your team. How do you fix it? What do you do about it? And so writing a book was just one of the coolest experiences of my life. I was the kid that hated English class. I was never good at English. And to be a professional writer now is so ridiculous to me, because that wasn't me until I got to university and I learned to love to write, and now expressing myself. So writing a book, super fun. Writing a blog, even more fun. So I've had a blog for about 5 years now, And that's a blast. And getting emails from people all over the world saying, you know, oh, that was so helpful, and thank you. And so, you know, writing is something that practice your writing. Write everywhere you can. Write a blog about what it's like to be an incoming student. Write a blog about absolutely anything, because practicing writing, that's going to be one of the skills. When I'm hiring people, looking at the quality of their writing, can they express themselves? Can they be very straightforward and forthright and approachable, and do their ideas come across? That's going to be one of the #1 things that I'm paying attention to. So write anywhere you can, and if you ever get the chance to write a book, it's fantastic. It's really amazing. Any other questions? Yeah.
How did you get fired?
How did I get fired? It was a restaurant, and the people were just really abusive. And so what they would do is take the summer students and put them on split shifts and things like that. So I had to drive 40 minutes to get to work, and they would give me like 12 to 2 and then 7 to 9 as shifts and things like that. And I was advocating for myself to say, you know, please, can I have a full shift because of how far I have to go and those sorts of things, and talking about what, you know, what was fair game. I said, you know, as an employer, you need to do this. And so I was just a pain in the ass. It was easier to have the other students who didn't know their rights and so they kept me for May, June, July, the really busy season. And when August was slower in this tourist city, they let me go. And you know, they were probably within their rights to let me go. I knew that I was being let go. The good thing when you're a waitress is you know how you're doing because of your tips, right? You know how good you are, and I was getting good tips. It was all good. I was doing the job well, but I knew that I was more of a pain in the ass. So it's a great question. Am I willing to be the pain in the ass employee for what's right? And am I willing to have the consequence? Guess what? There will be many times in your life, and the employees that do the absolute best in companies are the employees who spend every day willing to be fired for the right reason. So when I look at execs and I look at people who are succeeding in work, the really good ones know, yep, if this is the right thing for the company, if this is the right thing for the customer, if this is the right thing for my values, then if I get fired standing up for those things, I'm okay. And so they'll say the unpopular thing, they will fight, they will have conflict, and people always say to me, oh my God, I can't believe you said that out loud. And when I say those things, the things that make other people really butt clench, when I do that, that's when I get a call back. That's when I become indispensable to a CEO, because so few people speak truth. So you got to decide, and it was really weird because I didn't know in my little pub waitressing job in Bracebridge, Ontario in 1990 that I was learning something that was going to last forever. But if you are prepared to be fired, to do the right thing, first of all, that was the only time I've ever been fired, and now you become so strong once you're willing to be fired, because you're like, fine, fire me. So you can say the things that need to be said. You can add a lot more value. So, you know, I didn't like learning it at that moment, but it was a really good one to learn. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, hi.
Did you do your undergraduate here or just grad school?
Do I have to admit that?
Yes.
I went to Western. Okay, be nice. No, I did my undergrad at Western, and I did my graduate work here. So I did my master's and my PhD here. And it's really interesting because when the universities come after you, and it's funny, you get a New York Times bestselling book and the phone rings. And this was the place that I really wanted to invest in. So I try and come to campus when I can and talk to students as much as I can, because this place is doing amazing stuff. So I'll tell you my story. So I came in to do graduate school in psychology, and I was this crazy nut. I had this idea. I wanted to study innovation. And I didn't want to just study innovation like in theory in psychology in the past building next door. I wanted to really work with real teams. And so they let me have one PhD advisor in engineering and one in psychology. And I worked with high-tech product development teams. And now 50% of my practice is in Silicon Valley in the US. That's why I work with PlayStation and things like that. as a Waterloo arts student, I go to Silicon Valley. And you know what's really awesome when you go to Silicon Valley as opposed to anywhere else in the US? They go, oh, where did you go to school? And you go, Waterloo. And they go, cool. You're like, really? Yay! Because that has never been heard in Canada, ever. Certainly not from my friends who went to Western. So, you know, when I give my time, I haven't been back to Western, but I give my time to Waterloo whenever I can, because I think this is it's a really amazing place and doing amazing things, and you guys have this amazing opportunity. I think the other really important thing is take advantage of being at Waterloo, right? You're arts students, but God, those tech people need us. They need us. So the reason why I can make a killing in Silicon Valley is the IQs are really high, but the EQ is really painful. And so they know they need me. So it's great. Why does somebody from Toronto, Canada, get to fly to Silicon Valley and work with these massive companies? Well, because I can think like Waterloo, right? I was in this milieu. I get them. I know them. Right? They were people I hung out with, spent a lot of time at grad pub with people doing PhDs in math. So I understand them. So I would really encourage you, bring the genius that is arts, bring the flexible thinking, bring that interest in figuring things out that arts gives you, but do immerse yourself, whether it's playing broom ball at midnight or whatever else, immerse yourself in all that Waterloo has to offer, because that makes you a really, really compelling person. And I think those mixing of flavors happen really, really, really well here at Waterloo. But no, I didn't do my undergrad here. There was another question. Hi.
Did you minor in anything else when you were doing your undergrad?
Yeah, history. Do we have history majors in the room? Yay! Woo! I still love history because, let's be fair, history and psychology are just the same thing in different time periods, right? So I was really into 20th century history, really particularly obsessed with the Second World War, because the Second World War has so much interesting psychology. So history was a great minor for me. Psychology is very, very science-based, and so it was really nice to have that more humanities side coming from history. And dabbling was really, really great. Dabble, because those are the places where you find, the world now is not about, my dad used to keep me honest, so I have a PhD, my brother has a PhD, my husband has a PhD, and my sister-in-law has a PhD. And so my father used to try and keep us humble about all these different lines. And one of the things he said is, all you're doing is learning more and more and more about less and less and less until you know everything there is to know about nothing. And he's pretty right, okay? Like, you just get so narrow and deep. So dabbling in things. In my fourth year, I took Greek and Latin, just because I like words. I think words are really awesome. And now being an author, it was amazing to have that background in Greek. So play a little, be curious, enjoy, take a course because you enjoy it. I am warning you, those are the classes that kick you in the ass, just so you know. Like Greek and Latin, I got like 51 and almost wrecked my whole grad school career. But, you know, so just be careful. They do kick you in the butt, but play a little in whatever. Yeah, hi. Yeah, just write. So it's the amazing thing now. So this alum came and she asked me I asked her if there's any advice about people who want to write, and she said, write. Adults are so annoying. So, you know, when I was here, you couldn't write and have anyone see it. Like, unless you were willing to pay 5 cents a sheet for photocopies, right, at Kinko's in those days, right? Now, being able to publish a blog on absolutely anything is so easy, and it doesn't matter if no one reads it. And of course, the problem with blogs is it takes a long time for anybody to see it. But do it, because it takes a long time to find your voice. It takes a long time to figure out how you are, and writing is a discipline. So I write, I know this sounds ridiculous. So when I wrote my first book, my second daughter was 6 weeks old, and I wrote 6 a.m. every Saturday morning. That's when I could write. And, you know, make writing a habit and just write. So now I write on airplanes. So it's really funny because I have this Pavlovian response. When the seatbelt sign goes off on the airplane, so you're allowed to take out your computer, every time that goes ding, I take out my computer and I write a blog. It's now conditioned over 5 years. I just don't even think now. I take it out and I write. And that's the first 10 minutes, I often don't feel like it. I'm like, I don't have any ideas. I don't know what I'm writing about. And 10 minutes in, it always comes. So just start writing, write about anything. And then, you know, there's lots of opportunities on campus to write, right? Student publications, you know, writing for things in your department. There's tons and tons and tons of opportunities to write. Writing is just practice and find your voice. And, you know, the writing that you do in academic papers is not the writing that's going to sell as soon as you get out of here. So write a blog or something like that so you can practice being more colloquial, so that you can just use comfortable language, so you can really get to the point faster. When you're writing academic papers, you're like, okay, 2,500 words, am I there yet? And you're like putting in, you know, heretofore and other shit to fill space. And of course, when you're writing for the real world, crisper, everything is getting shorter. How do you get really punchy? But just do it, play with it. Anything you care about. Pick anything you care about and write about it. The other thing I learned about writing a blog is not having it appeal to more and more people, but actually being really focused and really narrow. You'll get a better following going really, really specific, and then you can earn a bigger following and spread out from there. Go with something really specific. You know, history students living in Village 1, I don't know, whatever. But, you know, if you get the first set of them, you can grow from there. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, so it's a great question. So how do you conflict with your professor in a paper, in something that's more subjective? So first of all, your professors will love that what the professors actually get really bored of is people just repeating what they said, right? People who want to be university academics have actually like given themselves to a life of debate and disagreement, and that's what they live for. They love it. So first of all, don't be nervous about disagreeing, but be thoughtful about it. So what evidence do I have? Where can I compare and contrast? What, you know, where may I give some support to that point, and where might I disagree with it? But be thoughtful about it and have some proof and have it well thought out. If you're worried about it, go to an office hour beforehand and say, you know, I'm working on my outline for my paper, and I actually, you know, I think differently than what we were talking about in lecture last week, and I'm toying with having my thesis of my paper be this. How do you feel about that? Right? That's why they have those hours. And again, that's a figure it out thing. Figure out that going into the professor ahead of time, first of all, just immediately gets you noticed by the professor. They'll figure out who you are. They'll pay more attention to you. So that's a good idea. It's a great gauge of, was this a good idea or not a good idea? Is this a professor who's gonna be like, oh, cool, what makes you say that? Oh, take a look at this paper, right? Is it one of those? Or is it a like, well, that's an interesting choice. And you're like, oh, okay, I think I'll, you know, go the other way. So use those things. It's a 15-minute visit in an office hour. Make the time for it, right? That's what you're here to do. As somebody who had office hours for 5 years at Waterloo, the number of office hours that I just played Tetris through because no one ever came, so go. You know, use the time, actually show that you're invested, that you're curious, test the waters on whether this is a situation and a professor that's gonna like that, get some hints about how to do it well. You can ask for coaching, you know, so if I were to take the opposite perspective, you know, what are some of the techniques I might use to defend the opposite? You know, ask those kinds of questions, right? Hi.
Do you mind quickly reading your list?
Oh, reading my list. It's a little embarrassing, but okay. Okay, before I came to university, I wish I had known that it didn't matter how late I scheduled my first class, I'd still sleep through it. True. That I would change so much and barely realize it. You don't realize that till you hang out with your high school friends again next summer. Or if you have any friends who are not in university this year, and you hang out with them when you go home, you'd be like, wow. That you can love a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. It's true. The university kids throw airplanes too. This is not as true at Waterloo, but I did my undergrad at Western, that if you wear a skirt, everyone asks why you're so dressed up. Here they just assume you have a co-op interview. That if you were smart in high school, so what? That I'd go to a party the night before a final. That chem labs required more time than my other 18 credits combined. That change is a positive experience and shouldn't be avoided. Oh, I like these two. That you can know everything and fail a test. That you can know nothing and pass a test. And you can never tell which one it's going to be in advance. Yeah. That I could get used to almost anything about my roommate. That home would turn out to be a nice place to visit. When you're so keen to get away from home, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's pretty good here. That most of my education would be obtained outside my classes. True. That friendship is more than just hanging around together. Yeah, friends become so important because there will be lows, right? There will be lows. There are moments of isolation, moments where it's hard, and the thing to remember is somebody else is having the same experience, and even just sometimes somebody who doesn't understand but will just sit there beside you is a really good thing. That I would become one of those people my parents warned me about. Yeah, people who flunk classes. And yeah. That Sunday is a figment of the world's imagination. You don't see a lot of Sundays. You know, all week you think that Sunday is going to be the day when you're going to get so much stuff done, and then you use it to sleep. That psychology is really biology, biology is really chemistry, chemistry is really physics, physics is really math, and math is really ... Math was really ... That privacy was something created by someone who never lived in residence. That I should sleep prepared because fire alarms never come during the day. That friends at home are only a phone call away. That washing my hair would become a good enough excuse to skip night class. Night classes suck. I like this one. That there would be 139 days left after the 101 Ways to Cook Craft Dinner book my mom gave me. That sometimes my stereo would have to suffice as my best friend. That I would be happy with a 50 in calculus. So sad. That being in sync with my roommates could be a curse. That's for the ladies. The gentlemen shouldn't understand that one. This one you will not understand. That long distance advice isn't any more comforting, it's just more expensive. So you will not relate to the fact that long distance cost money when I went to school. My brother lived in New York City, and we had this one night where I was having a rough patch. And I had this long conversation with my brother and got a $200 phone bill. $200. My monthly money for food, everything was $400. I was like, dang. It was bad. The only time I would have to do laundry would be the exact same time as everyone else. The people on my floor would be emotional block parents for me. That spending time alone makes you appreciate your time with other people, and spending time with other people makes you appreciate your time alone. So that was what I had figured out by the end of first year. Which was pretty good by the end of first year. So yeah. What else can I share with you? Yeah.
You mentioned about how people shield children these days.
Yeah.
So in terms of high school, I know I had some very extravagant opinions, and whenever I used to voice them, people used to just say like conform. So what's your opinion on conformity in terms of ideologies?
Yeah. We're destroying innovation in children. Have you seen the TED Talk, Sir Ken Robinson? Yeah. So I think like he thinks. I think that we think innovation is amazing, and we talk about places like Silicon Valley and the Golden Triangle here in KW, and we exalt all of this, and then we beat it out of our children, right? Right from, no, honey, color inside the lines, right? Like we start at the no, that's not what a tower looks like. Like we start from the youngest age to create conformity. And I think it's sad that your diversity of thought was not rewarded. Now, I think what we don't want is to have, and what you'll learn here is that your difference in diversity of thought will be very welcomed, but it can't be opinion. Okay, so that's what you have to add now, is you have to learn how to get to the library, right? And how to find research, find things to defend that point of view. And you need to learn how to support and defend and back up and fight for your diverse perspectives. But, you know, I think the sad thing is that places that aren't like, so Mark Zuckerberg was a Harvard guy, right? And it didn't take him very long to be like, I can't think anything unique and cool here, so I have to leave to succeed. That's what excited me about Waterloo. You don't have to leave Waterloo to be a nonconformist. You can be a nonconformist here and it will be celebrated, but you have to learn to back it up. So work on that. Don't change your beautiful non-conforming ideas. That's why you go to university, and you will find it so refreshing to not have that high school conformity. And professors can think bigger, and it is really exciting, but they won't tolerate it if it's just opinion and bravado, and right? So that's what you gotta learn. Add to it the meat that actually makes it a contribution to the world and to ideas, but you're gonna have fun. It's gonna be so much more fun here. My funny story about that, I actually, when I got here, my very first term here, I had to take a class called child assessment. It was how to assess intelligence and all those sorts of things. There was this guy in my class, and he was such an ass. And he was like non-conforming on everything. And then he would come in with like papers and documentation as to why, you know, why his point of view was right. And he was away one class because he went home to Montreal for his birthday. And they were assigning a group project. We all know how much I love group projects. And I said, I want to do this topic. And the professor, who didn't like either of us, because we were both nonconformist loudmouths, says, I'm going to put him in the group with you. And this third person says, oh, I got to see that. So she's like, put me in that group. And he's my husband, and she's my best friend, 24 years later. True story. And he's also my business partner when we started our own company together 2 years ago. So, you know, this is a place where you can be nonconformist, where you can have different ideas, and the people will be attracted to you, maybe physically, but maybe just intellectually, because it's so refreshing. And everybody here has been waiting for a place where there could be real debate and intellectual, honest conversation about things. It's the best part of university. It's awesome. So just enjoy it. Soak it up. Because you'll probably get back to a few spots early in your career where it goes back to the conformity. You have to fight against that and be brave, and don't be afraid to lose a job over standing up for what you believe in, and good things will happen for you. But this is it. Soak it up right now, because it's really rewarded here. Yeah, hi. Cool. I like weird. What is it? Yeah. Yeah. So Kayla's going to come up after and talk about the arts undergraduate office, and she's going to talk about professionals who can actually help you. If I talk about it from my fully opinion-based, I think what's exciting in the world now is the collision of ideas from very, very different spheres. So I think you can get that either way. So I would love for your minor to be something different. So my minor was history, because history is really just psychology in the past. really, because I was particularly interested in World War II history, which is very much about psychology. And that still informs why I got really interested in group psychology processes, because, you know, how does World War II happen? How does the Holocaust happen? And so, but I took a bunch of history classes, as opposed to taking one history and one economics and one. So what I would encourage you to do, though, is if you're going to take mathematical economics, get something that's going to push your writing, push your communication. Find something, and there's so much here at Waterloo, it's amazing. But I know some of the chief economists of the big banks. They're really, really cool people, and the reason they became the chief economists of the big banks is because they're great, not just great economists. They have a lot of great economists that work for them. They're great communicators, right? That's what's really, really important. So make sure you pick up things that expose you to ideas. You know, make sure you pick up things that are more ambiguous than math is, right? And when you get into high math, it's really ambiguous, but yeah, crazy ambiguous. Fermat's theorem, man. But find some of that stuff. So find the places to stimulate different parts of your brain. Just a warning, those are the classes that will kick your butt. You're like, dude, I was taking this course for fun because Liane told me to expand my brain. How could this be the class where I'm getting a C? Now, what I heard from Kayla earlier is that there are different averages on your transcript for your major versus your, yeah, we didn't have that. So that was just me taking Greek and Latin in fourth year, just was like, pulled everything down. But you know what? If you have a lower grade in something you took, and when you show it to an employer, you say, look, my math and econ is super high. I took this because I needed to expand my brain. I needed to practice learning how to think outside the box. And I'm really proud of getting a B- in that, because it was hard and I learned a ton from it. And that's the mark I actually want to talk to you about, because I'm really proud that I took that. Just don't be ashamed of it. So just a warning. Take the courses to expand your brain, to teach you how to think differently, and be prepared that they'll kick your butt. And don't be ashamed that they kick your butt. Be proud of it. Talk about the fact that you wanted to think more broadly. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's
okay. Okay. You are probably so smart that it would hurt me to talk more with you, because math and econ is just, I'm like, oh. Very, very cool. Fun stuff. Hi. Oh, damn. I know yeah. Na knows that I could like all day. Go.
To ask that, how can we as students, as first year students, improve our networking skills to be good entrepreneurs?
Oh, great question. How can we improve our networking skills to be good entrepreneurs? So good networking, people are terrible at networking, because what they do is they bump phones against each other to share contact information or something. I'm like, that is not networking. You need to know enough about somebody and what they're struggling with and what they're paying attention to actually add value for them, pay it forward, and then so the pay it forward strategy is the best possible strategy you should adopt for your entire life. So I was doing a session with Waterloo students last year, and somebody was listening very carefully. And I said, the hardest thing for me is every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I sit down and stare at a flashing cursor of writing my blog for the week. And I have to go, what am I going to write about? And it's the worst thing ever. And as soon as I have a topic and an idea, then it's easy. I can write. And this person was paying attention. He sent me an email, and he put in an article. We were looking at this article in class, and I thought it might be a really interesting one for you to write about. So here's a Waterloo third-year undergrad who paid attention to what I was struggling with, who paid it forward to me, sent me something that was really useful. You can bet I was LinkedIn connected with him immediately. I am absolutely prepared to, have coffee with him, help him. So don't think that sharing contact information is networking. Learn about what somebody is wrestling with, what their pain points are, what's hard for them, share those kinds of things for you. Here's what's exciting for me. Here's what I really need. And then pay it forward as often as you possibly can in the tiniest of ways. But little things in this world, there's a million headlines or blogs that you see or things. It's so easy today to just shoot that over and say, hey, don't know if you saw this article, made me think of you. How's it going with that? Little things like that that say, I'm thinking about you. I hope you're thinking about me. Little pay it forwards. And that now, it's interesting. I started my business 2 years ago, and I haven't had to do one sales call in 2 years. The phone just rings. People phone me, and I think that's from 20 years of paying it forward. How do you be creative every time you write? Oh, I wish. Yeah, I think the answer is you don't. Right? You don't hold yourself to that standard. I've written 600 blogs, not 600 blogs, 600 articles on the blogs. And are they 600 like, wow, so proud of it, signed my name to it? No. But one of the things I love is to make connections in totally different places in the world. So analogies are great. Being curious, taking Greek and Latin and learning something about how the words for work and things like that. Okay, oh, interesting. And I can bring that into a blog about modern day work. A movie that was interesting, something that happens in my kids' classroom. So things become more creative when they're not siloed and they're not predictable. It's taking an example from something a little different. But don't hold yourself to the standard of being creative every time. Just start producing, start writing, and your voice will come over time. Yeah, we're done? Okay.
One more question.
Okay, so, no, I know, then I have to pick. Conflict. Sorry, go ahead.
So the rest of the University of Waterloo seems to be really focused on black and white football methods, ones and zeros.
Yes.
Where do you see the gray zone of the arts department coming into play in Waterloo and in the rest of the world?
So here's a real life example. So I'm in this Facebook group of people who are keynote speakers. And somebody put on yesterday, I have a client who's looking for a specialist in artificial intelligence, and it's a big paying gig. Anybody got it? They want to talk about how to motivate the artificial intelligence worker. And it didn't take long before the responses were like, duh, it's a computer. Like, you probably don't need to think about that. And so I wrote back, yeah, but how do you motivate the worker that sits beside an artificial intelligence worker? How do you cope with that? How do you think about the fact that you'll never keep up with your coworker because your coworker doesn't go home and doesn't have a family and doesn't sleep and doesn't, right? And can always run a million permutations and combinations. Well, that's hard. How do we adapt to a world where more and more and more of our work, or our traditional work, is either automated or artificially done, and what's left for the rest of us? And we're going to likely have more leisure. What is meaningful leisure in that world? How to, certainly the disparity that's being created by automation really making wealth very bimodal. These are all things that our friends in engineering are creating in the world with no idea what, and Elon Musk is like, be afraid, right? Elon Musk needs friends in arts, right? So they're creating these earth-shattering, perhaps revolution-inducing changes because they can, but they do not have the tools to think about what to do with it and how it affects our society and how it affects. That's why they're the humanities, right? How it affects humans. Boy, is there juicy work for us ahead, right? They are making juicy, juicy work. So go to the pub with them, play broomball with them, talk to them, understand what they're thinking about, but push back on what's that going to mean for this? And how are we going to think about this? And what are the questions we haven't even asked yet? Boy, is there juicy stuff for arts to work on, right? The future is really bright. I'm so excited for you. I do wish I could put the glasses back on and come with you for the rest of the week, because it would be amazing. But from the other side, just let me tell you, there's so much to learn. You'll have a hell of a lot of fun while you do it. You're gonna get bruised and scraped, but the bruises and the scrapes are actually what will make you you. So don't be afraid of those things. Have an amazing, amazing week. It was so nice to meet you. Thank you.